It was a moment few expected. The world, so used to seeing Elon Musk as a figure of relentless ambition and unwavering confidence, was about to witness something entirely different. Elon Musk, the titan behind SpaceX and Tesla, sat for an interview, not about rockets but about the newly enforced total closure of the US border. The topic was heavy, and the stakes were personal for millions. As the interviewer pressed him on the human impact, Musk's composure cracked. His voice wavered, a tear slipped down his cheek. The room seemed to hold its breath as the world's richest man revealed a rare, raw vulnerability. He spoke of the extinguishing of the light of human potential, a phrase that captured a profound sense of loss. Musk's words echoed with the weight of dreams deferred and futures suddenly uncertain. This was not the defiant Musk the world knew, but a man shaken by a government decision that slammed the door on America. The border, once a symbol of opportunity, now stood as a barrier to hope. The image was powerful because it was so unexpected. It cut through the political noise, reaching people who might otherwise have tuned out. For a moment, the debate was not about policy, but about raw human emotion. The pain and uncertainty felt by families across the nation became impossible to ignore. Musk, an immigrant himself, seemed to mourn something fundamental about the country he chose as home. His sorrow was not just for himself, but for the millions whose dreams were now in limbo. His reaction became a mirror, reflecting the sorrow and confusion felt by millions, turning a policy debate into a personal event. Suddenly, the consequences were no longer abstract. They were heartbreakingly real. The interview went viral. The image of a tearful Musk was everywhere, sparking conversations in homes, offices, and online communities across the nation. People who never cared about immigration policy suddenly paid attention. Why would this man, at the pinnacle of success, be so moved? The question lingered, prompting many to reconsider their own views. His response gave voice to the silent anguish of countless individuals. For many, Musk's tears spoke louder than any speech or statistic ever could. It suggested the border closure was not just a political maneuver, but a fundamental shift in the country's soul. The nation's identity, built on openness and opportunity, now seemed in question. Musk's tear acted as a catalyst, forcing a national reckoning with the consequences of this drastic measure. The conversation shifted from numbers and policies to people and pain. This single, unguarded moment set the stage for a profound national debate. It was a reminder that even the most powerful among us are not immune to the heartbreak of a nation in crisis. The border closure's effects rippled outward with devastating speed, touching every aspect of daily life along the US-Mexico divide. In cities like El Paso and San Isidro, life came to a sudden, jarring halt. Streets that once bustled with activity and laughter now echoed with silence. These are not just border towns, they're binational communities, where families, friendships, and businesses span both sides of the line. People cross daily to work, shop, visit family, and maintain the ties that make these communities unique and vibrant. Suddenly, husbands were separated from wives, parents from children, and siblings from one another, with no idea when they'd reunite. The economic and social fabric began to unravel overnight. Businesses faced catastrophe, and the sense of community was fractured. Cross-border trade and labor, vital to states like Texas and California, stopped cold, leaving entire industries in limbo. Trucks with fresh produce and goods were stranded, their cargo spoiling in the sun, unable to reach markets or families in need. Small businesses saw revenues plummet to zero, with owners left wondering how they would pay rent or support their employees. Restaurants and stores shuttered, laying off employees who suddenly found themselves without income or support. The pain was immediate and widespread, touching every household and business in these tight-knit communities. The human toll was even more profound as families struggled with uncertainty, fear, and heartbreak. Maria, a US citizen in Laredo, could no longer care for her elderly mother across the river. Despite living just minutes apart, she could only call, listening to her mother's confusion and fear, unable to help or offer comfort in person. This story repeated thousands of times, families torn apart by a line drawn by their own government, powerless to change their fate. Beyond the border, the closure sent shockwaves through the national economy, affecting millions far from the border itself. Industries from agriculture to construction faced critical worker shortages, unable to fill jobs or complete projects. Farmers watched crops rot in their fields, while construction projects stalled, costing millions in lost productivity. The closure, meant to protect jobs, was destroying them, leaving workers and families in financial freefall. The intricate web of the American economy, more dependent on global connections than many realized, was strained to the breaking point, threatening long-term stability. The policy was creating the very instability it was supposed to prevent, deepening the crisis with each passing day. The crisis was no longer just about security, it was about survival, as families struggled to find food, work, and hope. The nation was forced to confront the true cost of isolation, realizing that the consequences reached far beyond the border itself. Musk's vulnerability was striking because it shattered his public image. Here was a man known for logic and ambition, breaking down over a policy decision. It made immigration personal and relatable. If this billionaire immigrant could be moved to tears, it signaled the border closure was a human issue, not just a political one. Musk embodies the American dream, an immigrant who built the future here. His tears weren't just for those barred at the border, but for the idea that made his own journey possible. He's a pragmatist. He knows a nation's greatest resource is its people. Closing the border, to him, is shutting off a vital source of energy and innovation. His emotion gave millions permission to feel the same loss. The moment humanized Musk, cutting through the noise and connecting with people on a fundamental level. It was a plea to remember the principles of openness and opportunity. The border closure was the result of years of heated debate. Supporters cite national security, fears of terrorism, drugs, and crime. They argue the government's duty is to protect citizens, and a sealed border is the surest way. Economic arguments also drive support. Some believe immigration suppresses wages and strains public services. For many, closure is about prioritizing American workers and communities left behind by globalization. Opponents call the closure a moral and economic disaster, a betrayal of America's immigrant legacy. They argue immigrants fuel the economy, start businesses, and fill critical jobs. Cutting off immigration, they say, is like cutting off a vital artery, leading to stagnation and higher prices. The debate is about more than policy, it's about the soul and future of the nation. The real story is told in the lives upended by the closure. Behind every shuttered window and empty street, there are families grappling with uncertainty, their routines and dreams suddenly thrown into chaos. In San Diego, David Chen's software company lost 2 key engineers overnight. Cross-border collaboration shattered. Projects stalled, and the energy that once filled the office was replaced by silence and worry. His business, once a symbol of innovation and hope, now struggled to survive in a world where connections had been severed. In Georgia, farmer Frank Thompson watched his peaches rot. No migrant workers, no harvest, no help. Years of hard work and planning were lost in a single season, leaving him with empty fields and mounting debts. The policy meant to protect jobs was destroying family businesses. Shops that had served their communities for generations now faced permanent closure, their owners left with impossible choices. The most heart-wrenching stories were of families torn apart, children and parents separated by borders, unable to comfort each other in times of fear and uncertainty. Elena, a nurse in Arizona, was separated from her son in Honduras, his paperwork approved but now stranded. Every day she cared for strangers while longing for her own child's embrace. She cared for American families while her own was broken by policy. The pain of separation weighed on her even as she offered comfort to others. Even supporters of the closure faced unintended consequences. The ripple effects reached every corner, challenging beliefs and testing loyalties. Bill, a retired Border Patrol agent in Texas, saw his town's diner close and the community fade. The places that once brought people together now stood empty, echoing with memories. He questioned if there was a more humane way to achieve security. Was it possible to protect the nation without sacrificing its heart? The closure's impact was everywhere: businesses, farms, families, and communities. No one was untouched, and the scars would last for years to come. It forced everyone to reconsider what was truly being protected, and at what cost. In the end, the question remained: what price are we willing to pay for security? Musk's emotional reaction is rooted in his immigrant story and his belief in human potential. He sees America as an idea, where talent and hard work matter most. For Musk, immigration is a competitive advantage. The nation that welcomes talent leads the future. He advocates for expanded, streamlined legal immigration, especially for STEM fields. Closing the border, to him, is a strategic blunder, like refusing to hire the best people. Musk doesn't want open borders without rules, but a system that attracts and retains human capital. His tearful interview was a plea not to abandon the formula that made America, and his own success, possible. For Musk, openness is the lifeblood of innovation and progress. America's identity has long been tied to its image as a beacon of hope and opportunity. The sudden border closure shattered that image, sending a message: America is closing itself off. Allies are confused, seeing the move as a retreat from global leadership. The closure undermines America's ability to advocate for human rights and democracy. It weakens U.S. soft power, the ability to attract and inspire. The world now sees America as fearful and isolated, not confident and open. Aspiring innovators and students may look elsewhere, creating a reverse brain drain. The long-term consequences could be immense, from lost talent to diminished influence. The world is watching, wondering if this is a temporary measure or a permanent change. The answer will shape America's global standing for decades. The border closure forces a fundamental question: what does it mean to be American? For generations it meant believing in liberty, opportunity, and a future not defined by the past. Now that definition is challenged. The closure suggests a vision focused on preservation, not growth. Is being American about ideals or about protecting a particular way of life? The debate is between America as a melting pot and America as a gated community. It's not just political, it's philosophical, forcing citizens to choose the nation's core purpose. Musk's tears captured the fear that the American dream is slipping away. The crisis demands a decision. Is the dream a universal aspiration or a private possession? America stands at a crossroads, its identity in the balance. The border closure has created two Americas, one seeking security, the other mourning lost ideals. But neither extreme is sustainable. The way forward is balanced, secure borders and clear, fair pathways for immigration. This crisis is an opportunity to modernize the system and have an honest conversation about the nation's future. The decisions made now will define what kind of country America becomes. Will it look inward or reaffirm its identity as a confident, open society? The next chapter will be written by how America chooses to balance its ideals with its interests.